How would you like to make your first million? And today you're here for a treat because we have a serial entrepreneur, a much proper machine, yeah, when it comes to this subject to pro market fit and to make the first million. So Ari is Forbes called Ari Rastegar, the oracle of hosting in real estate world. Wow, he built Rastegar Capital, a multi-billion-dollar real estate investment and development firm, starting with just wow, $3,500 as a student loan. Wow, what a great story. So, Ari, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend entrepreneurs in order to make the first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Well, look, I think thank you for having me, Harry. And I really like your partner, Lily, a lot, who introduced me to you. So I'm happy to be here with you today. I think one of the most important thing is to know what you want. Okay. And when we really do this in order, there is a science, to achievement. Okay. Fulfillment and living a meaningful life. I think that's a little bit more difficult because it's an art and it's very personal. But the science of achieving, it's like going to college. You have a syllabus and you want to get a degree in marketing. You can read the syllabus and say, if you take all these classes, you can end up getting your degree. How you build a career with that, that's an art. That's a different discussion. So at the very beginning, just like if you were wanting to go eat at a wonderful restaurant in Miami, you say you want to eat sushi. Well, saying you want to go eat sushi is not enough because you have to put an address in. There needs to be an address at a particular restaurant. There needs to be a reservation at that exact restaurant for you to be able to go eat there. And I give you that explanation because oftentimes I hear, and I did the exact same thing, myself for many years of saying, I want to make $1 million. Okay, that's like saying that you just want to go out to eat and have dinner, but what service are you going to give? Who is your customer? What is it that you actually want, and what is the address that you have to put in the GPS system to get you to that location of what that business is. So the very first thing is what that you want to do, specifically what you want. And the more specific, the more definite purpose that you have. So what it is, that's one thing. And then having a definite purpose of what that actual endeavor is going to be. And then why you want it is the beginning. Because if you know why, you know what it is, you have a purpose in how you're going to serve, and you know why, you start to be able to create a plan. Because any great business, certainly anything of, getting up to the $1 million range or $1 billion range, $1 trillion range, has to do with how you obsess over your customers, how you're going to serve. Because early as entrepreneurs, we think, and I'm at the top of this list of, I want to be rich, me, how am I going to be rich? But great businesses actually don't work like that. It works on how I can go and serve my customers, how I can make. So in the investment business, I think of what John D. Rockefeller said a lot is they asked him, how did you become a billionaire? And he said, oh, that's easy. I made 1,000 people millionaires. So I would challenge you at the beginning of this, if you're go out there to make the million, how can you go create $100 million of value for other people, for your customers? And when you shift that focus from I to they, or from I to we, all of a sudden a strategy starts to come, because you need a great team if you're going to build a 7, 8, 9, 10-figure business, and people can rally and people can come together around a mission. And a mission around, I just want to be rich, is not very inspiring. Is that in fact, it's not only just not inspiring, it have a plan or an outlook or strategy. It's just an idea, or just maybe a thing at best, but you need to be able to take those feelings and turn them into strategies and get them on paper. And then you need to have them in paper in such a way that your team can become aligned around them, so you can have this unified force that's going towards growth and going towards contribution. And the way I like to look at it is, seeing if you can find, a problem to solve or find a pain point for somebody. And the more people that you can solve this problem for, the bigger your business is. Small problems create small dollars. Big problems create large problems. And even more importantly, it might be a small problem you're solving, but it helps a large volume of people. Or it can be a very large problem for a smaller volume of people. But there's a formula to how this works. But all great businesses, all things that are outstanding through the test of time that gets you past this, this of the 2 years of hell that all businesses that are starting have to deal with. That, I've read the number 90% of businesses fail within the first few years. And I actually think, there's actually much worse than that, where in the first year, probably 90% fail, then the next 90% fail. And if you make it to the 10 years, it's like getting struck by lightning 22 times, in one spot. And the only way to get through those dark nights of the soul, to keep persisting, to keep pushing, is to have a purpose that pulls you to what it is that you're trying to achieve. And, sorry to break it to everybody, but doing something just for yourself is not enough. And not enough in the sense that not enough energy. One person doesn't have enough energy to get through those dark nights. And I have a lot of push energy. I have a lot of willpower, but until you your heart and set your mind on something so powerful that is beyond you, that can pull you getting to the 9 figures or getting to 10 figures, and beyond, is going to be amazingly difficult. Maybe with AI and some other things, I'll be wrong, which I am about these things. And you go back and you learn, but finding that purpose, finding what you want it, being able to rally a team around in that, and being so obsessed with your customers and adding so much value that your competition, can't even stand next to you because you're giving so much. I think somewhere in there is your 5 steps and your recipe to do something meaningful in life.
Become a millionaire in real estate is easy. We have, Ari, out of the 500 millionaires that we interview in this podcast, 1 out of 5 are real estate multimillionaires, real estate investors. Now, for our young audience, it doesn't matter what we discuss here, and it's very wise what you share. They are listening and they say, oh, I want to make a million, and I'm listening Harry podcast. 1 out of 5 are property millionaire. That's it. Become a millionaire in property is easy. So can you tell, especially to our young entrepreneurs, the good, the bad, and the ugly of be a property millionaire, so we can open the discussion, because it doesn't matter what I say, and we read it again and again in this podcast. Like, look, my first business was in property. I know it's okay. It's amazing. I mean, it's a great vehicle. 1 out of 5 podcast interviewers that I have in this podcast, 500 millionaires, they are property millionaires. Okay, fine. So it's a great vehicle. But can you tell us the good,
Sure.
the bad, and the ugly?
Sure. Well, I think sometimes we confuse the word easy with simple. And so if it was easy, everybody would do it. But that doesn't mean it's not simple. Einstein said it very clearly: make everything as simple as possible, but no simpler. And basically, I think in a world that we're drowning in information, eliminating things that you're doing is more important than adding things on, I think. And if you're going to start in any endeavor, certainly in real estate, I think one of the most important things to understand about real estate, whether commercial, private equity, the business that we're in, managing money for public pension plans, insurance companies, is that real estate is about people. All of real estate, whether you're a broker, selling the new, condo in Miami, or if you're buying a little duplex for retirement, if you're building huge apartment complexes, data centers, whatever you're doing in real estate at a high level, if you're looking to create sustainable wealth that's really giving a service and a value, figuring out what the needs of a community are, figuring out the needs of what the people are, especially in a growing community like Miami, in Austin, you have to figure out in certain areas anticipating what those needs are actually going to be, no matter what the asset class is. I've invested in pretty much every single asset class, from student housing, office, apartments, data centers, industrial facilities, hotels, you name it. And at the end of the day, there's always a person. And people say, oh, well, data centers, that's just technology. And my joke has always been the cloud is a computer system that lives in a Rastigar building, and so you have to have still people that are behind this. So it's very easy to look at real estate and say, oh, this is just bricks and mortar. This is just concrete and sticks and paint. But the tenants that inhabit them, or in apartment complexes, as we like to say, our neighbors are in them. When you know their needs and you can fulfill their needs, whether it's the amenities in a building, whether it's the layout of how the is laid out, or the condominium is laid out to foster a better life, to build, the businesses, the families, or whatever they're building. But when your focus is on the people, then and you back into the bricks, I think your probability of having massive success, if we're talking about these number of millions, billions. And one thing that I like to think about is in terms of $1 million. People think of say $1 million and they say $1 billion. And they say these words very close to one another. They say, oh, 1 million, and I'm going to build 1 billion. Well, I'm going to put this in perspective for you. If $1 million was in seconds, so you had 1 million seconds, okay, that would be 13 days. Okay, 1 million seconds, 13 days. 1 billion seconds would be 37 years. So think about the difference in scale. So when you're serving 1 billion people, or you're creating $1 billion worth of value, you're talking about the difference between days and the difference between years. And in real estate, great businesses aren't built in days, they're built in decades. And when you can extend your timeline and extend your horizon for when you personally can be gratified, and you spend your time obsessing over your customers and figure out how you can serve them before you try to serve yourself, those are the people that end up on the Forbes 400.
Ari, half a billion-dollar company is not easy. You have to unlearn constantly, right? When you go to one, when we talk about this podcast, product market fit. So when you make from zero to your first million, okay, now after you first the first million, you have to delete everything you learned, because now going from 1 million to 10 totally is different. Then 10 million to 100 different. You have to be able to unlearn and unlearn. So how
I
come
love how you said that, Harry.
you develop that capacity until get a billion?
So much wisdom. There's so much wisdom, so much wisdom in what you said. I'll give you an example, okay? And I've used a lot of different business coaches, life coaches. I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins. I saw his picture in the back of your thing, going to his seminars, conferences, and doing the inward work. And I'll give you an example my coaches taught me. So I'm a founder and a CEO, obviously. And a founder and a CEO, we say them closely like million and billion, but they're very different. And I'll tell you why. The qualities that make a great founder, let's talk about them. Bold, risk taker, hardworking, can do a lot of different ththings. They're good at marketing and sales and finance and fundraising, whatever. All these different things. Okay, that's a founder, great founder. You have to have those. So you have no prayer, right? Belief and grit. All of those traits that make up that human being, or that does that, makes a terrible CEO. Calculated. They train people, they lieutenants and generals in place to build departments. They build systems. They build processes. They're not as much bold as they are patient. That, meaning that to evolve from founder to CEO, just like you said, the strategies that get you from 0 to 1 million are not the same from 1 to 100. Or 100 to 1 billion, or so on. And fundamentally, this is why founders are fired so often from their companies. They say, oh, it's because he was an asshole. He probably was an asshole, but that's not why he got fired. It was because his genetic makeup, his wiring or her wiring didn't evolve. So the business evolves, the strategy evolved. Netflix was sending DVDs in the fucking mail, and now they're a streaming company. Amazon was doing book sales out of Jeff Bezos's garage, and now they sell everything. My point is, evolution, the innovate or die is how these businesses start. So what you started in is not what you're finishing in. And oftentimes as founders or CEOs, we forget that we have to evolve, that we have to change, that we have to be curious, that we have to audit our thoughts, audit our feelings, audit the way we look at circumstances, that we can continue to innovate as human beings so that our business then can be a reflection of us and it can continue to grow and prosper as we prosper, as we overcome our past selves.
Yeah, I have a big experience with this, Ari, because okay, let's face it, we all have ego as entrepreneur. Okay, otherwise we're not gonna be we won't be entrepreneurs because we think that we can do better. So
Of
okay, we have
course.
that ego. But then my first business was in property, and after you start to making money and everything, you go to the office and you're thinking that you're a big deal, that you know everything about it, that everybody needs to talk, that you're the big boss, okay? And Ari, after 2 years, the first 0 to 1 million, you know how hard it is. You've done it several times. So I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. All the clients have 177 tenants. They all want to speak with me. All the team want to speak. And I have a lot of money in the bank account,
Mhm.
and I'm so angry. I'm so tired. And then something chief, like I said, okay, what if I put a sign in the office out of survival? Okay, if you have a problem, bring three solutions. You choose one and try it out. So I had to do this out of survival. I'm thinking these people are gonna kill me. When I'm gonna sleep. So with between all the tenants and everything, and what happened, I surrendered my ego in that process, and the business was not about me anymore. It was about them. Guess what happened? 2 years after, my manager, I arrived to the office and my manager told me, Harry, go home. We don't need you here anymore. I said, what? I said, yeah, we can we can grow
Thank
this
God.
company, go on holiday, try the world. In fact, don't come here because you come to talk to us and we growing a business here. And I remember what I told her. I told her, really? You want home? Who's going to buy the paper for the photocopy then? Who's going to do that? And she told me, we can buy our paper for the photocopy, Harry. Just go home. So it shift the dynamic, but I had to take a lot from me to let it go this and a big deal and a big boss. Everybody had to do what I say. And I made the business about me, and I was miserable and a slave of my own business. And when I surrendered that ego and I started to participate, they gave me, I mean, the first day I feel a bit weird, like what I'm gonna do. But the second day was amazing. I was thinking, wow, it's unbelievable that I pulled this off. So Ari, when do you realize that ego that we have as entrepreneur, that we have it, that you have to, for example, part of the rewiring that you're talking about is just that. That ego sometimes don't allow the entrepreneur to write themselves. They know better. This is if I make 1 million like that, I make the 10 million like this, and you don't know what you're talking about and things like that. So when do you realize that? Hold on a minute. Um, this to make $1 billion company, it need with me, and I had to be able to rewire, to drop that ego, to listen, to be a team, to don't be an asshole. When you realize all this?
Well, I think we're constantly realizing. I don't think it for me it happened in one particular moment where it's like, oh, haha, my ego went aside and now, it's canes and lollipops. I think it's a constant unveiling because there's a part where you have some realization where it's just you working and then you hire your first couple people, and then that one point you let your baby start to grow up. And then when those people start bringing other people and so I think it's a constant unveiling that takes time to evolve. And I think if this is growing, because it's either growing or dying, period. All business, just like life, growing, dying, one or the other. So if you are in a hyper growth business, and look, I started with a 30-foot loan. If you build on the hundreds of acres we own, office buildings, apartment complexes, industrial facilities, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars worth of assets. And that comes, billions starts with bills. So, so when you think about that and all the risk you have and all the people that you have to rely on to do it, you're constantly shedding that old skin, enhancing your operations. And as you enhance your operations, I think those are an extensions of the enhancement that you're doing. So I have personally spent more time on my personal development as the business has gotten bigger than I do on the business itself, spending more time at meditation retreats, spending more time, with, doing Tony Robbins works, watching these podcasts, reading new books, being around great minds, because the more that I feel like I've been able to do that, and yes, at the beginning, it can be very humbling. But once you realize how gratifying it is and how amazing it is, it's like, I'm a father of three. Okay. I have three beautiful children. And I think of my business in a way like my baby, like my child. But my child that's being raised by a lot of different people, a lot of great minds, great employees, staff, consultants. Just like when I took my youngest daughter to kindergarten, this year, she had to get out of the house. She had to, go into school. She had to go make new friends. She had to evolve. Business is very much like that too. So when your manager very lovingly said, Harry, you can go home, it's kind of like her teacher saying, no, dad, it's okay. We got this. Like, we're gonna keep this going. I'm still her dad, but business takes that same pull. So I think constantly self a better question every day, questioning our responses, questioning how we do things, questioning how we show up, questioning our triggers. Because look, there's a lot of intelligence. There's emotional intelligence, mathematics intelligence, social intelligence, etc. But one of the intelligence is called metacognition. And metacognition means thinking about what you think about. So as a business owner with all these things happening, as you start to make decisions or how you run a meeting or how you run an investment strategy, if you can pause for a second and start thinking about how you came to that decision or why you've done it like that in the past, it can start to bring new situations, new ideas. But the point is, the Japanese have a beautiful, beautiful term that I love so much. It's called, and Kaizen means constant, never ending improvement till the day that I die. And it's a lifestyle. So being an entrepreneur in a growing world in the fourth industrial revolution, when information technology is growing exponentially, is accelerating exponentially, we have set that same analogy to ourselves as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to say, how can I change? How can I evolve? What can I do better? What was the strategy that got me here? And then constantly just pushing that, so that you can to serve your customers as much as possible.
Now let's talk about fulfillment, because I said, if I don't start this podcast, how you can make a million, nobody will be listening. Everybody wants to make a million without knowing that that could be your initial idea. But when I was in this real estate business, at the beginning, I'm like, I want to make a million, I want to make a million. I don't even notice. I was so immersed in the operation that I think it was the accountant who told me. I didn't even notice when this happened. So one thing is what you that you go in business for, and then the other thing is the internal transformation that go within yourself, where you start to evolve a person, right? And then we're talking about rewiring and learning a few things. But now let's talk about fulfillment, because change your life of your clients, make services that they are so good that they let all their friends, make difference people's life. That give you freedom. Having running billion-pound, billion-dollar company like you do, oh yes, is is good, but it's that money is not doesn't need to fulfillment. However, for that to happen also, when you go 0 to 1 at the beginning, nobody knows you. Like exactly, you started with student loan. I got the same amount, this house amount loan. Went to the bank that was working as waited, maybe 5.95 an hour. That was 16 years ago in the pub. And then for starting property business, I was doing rent to rent. We were renting the unit, full houses, and renting the units separate. So I went to my law and I said, look, you should lend me some $1 million on my property business. They, I was taking so much money and the loan was only 3,000 pounds. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if I don't pay this money, like you play the years, I'm calculating all the years that's going to take me to pay these 3,000. Um, so, but when you start the business at the beginning, nobody knows you. You only need $3,000 I on the student loans, and then what you need to do is start to use property thing, and nobody knows you. People ask you for discount. People don't want to pay you more. People don't understand your value. You don't know what you're doing anyway. All these negative emotions that to store in your mindset, in your mind, as you grow. Analyze these negative emotions, they can end up, you're gonna end up, with say attack because negative and they can be they can become being. But I think negative emotions that that is still there. Um like for example, for me, I notice a lot that I love to walk, play tennis. I will play tennis with Lily. We walk a lot, and that I need to see green. That take all these negative emotion and channel it. Lily likes to swim, for example, right? So it's different for everybody. How you doing this, Ari? Because what I know is that when you're dealing with $1 billion company, you're solving $1 billion problem, and the pressure is always there. So how you is it still everything there in your head, or how you let it go?
That's for me, has been a huge, 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 huge part of my life. I learned Ray Dalio actually. I was at a conference as a young entrepreneur, and I got to meet him. And I asked him, as a young entrepreneur, what's one thing that I should learn how to do? Like what skill? And I thought he was going to talk to me about sales or networking. I don't know what the fuck he was going to say. And he goes, learn to meditate. Meditate? Ray Dalio, the greatest investor in history. Okay, so I went and learned transcendental meditation. A gentleman named Maharshi Mahesh Yogi brought it to the United States. He taught the Beatles. The reason you know the word meditation in kind of American culture is because of Maharshi. And I went and took my course. I did all the advanced techniques. I became a siddha. And learning to meditate brought me a calmness in my mind that had so many different benefits I can't even explain to you, that are just remarkable. And I got to see Ray again and tell him and thank him, for that gift, by the way. And then recently, I've been doing meditation work with a gentleman named Dr. Joe Dispenza. So anybody who has not heard of Dr. Joe, look him up. He's absolutely incredible. He's a scientist that has been able to explain what happens with measuring the brain waves, the heart waves, so you can see what's actually happening to your physiology, what's happening to you when you learn to meditate, so we can make better decisions, and live a more fulfilling life. So that particular practice of spending, between 30 minutes to an hour and a half every single day doing either a walking meditation, sitting, laying down, something where I can close my eyes and really take a moment to train my emotional intelligence to feel the sentiments and the feelings that I want to feel, to lower my physical stress, my cortisol levels, my physiological stress, so that when I go back into the world and deal with all the problems, and by the way, problems are the gifts that we grow from. Great businesses solve problems better than anybody on earth. And one of the big tragedies of humans is that we think we're not supposed to have problems. You get surprised. Oh, it's another problem. It's another problem. No shit. That's called living. This is life, and if you're solving problems better. But for me, that internal work, that meditation practice, I'm not Mother Teresa, but I'm a spiritual person. My work, my worship, and I'm doing work for something because I believe I have something to give. I believe we're doing that really helps our customers in a meaningful way, helps our investors, helps our end users in the buildings. And in order to do that, I want to make sure that I'm coming and approaching it from a place that's not only intellectual and has strategy, but also has heart and has empathy. And I think when you can combine empathy, with intelligence, that's a superpower. And I find the more that I've done the inner work, the outward work is taking care of itself.
The other question that I want to ask you is regarding your life as an entrepreneur. For example, my parents are teachers, okay, so they told me, go to university, you have to study hard. Look, if you study and you pass
Me too.
university, you're gonna be fine. So then I went there, I got a degree in chemical engineer. As I got the degree, give it them, they have the piece of paper, and then the chemical engineer in my lab. And entrepreneurs we have right that it doesn't matter if it's going to be at early age or the 30s or the 40s, the 60s, something with a spark of that special gene we have inside, and our entrepreneurial life is going to start. That's it. My one was 18 years ago. When so my dad was sick, and then I didn't have to go and see him in Spain. It was a mess. I said, okay, you know what? I read the book of Frank Kiyosaki, and I said, I'm gonna do property business. A friend told me you don't make the money there, and this is where the journey started. So what happened? Tell us your story. When you decided that's it, I'm gonna make my own business. Any particular incident happen, or what's the story?
Well, I have an Iranian father, okay? And I have an Iranian father, and
Oh, the white
he
cell.
said, and to my
Discipline.
dad,
Lot of
like
discipline in
you,
the house, right?
yeah, and education. So everybody on my dad's side of the family is a doctor, a lawyer, or a PhD. So education, my grandfather, was one of the king of Iran's medical doctors. And they came after the revolution. My father went to law school later in life. So no matter what I was going to do in my life, I was going to become a lawyer first because that's what my dad said. So I didn't really have too much of a choice. So I said to him, whatever at one point that, I want to,
Like me,
yeah, exactly. And so I studied English literature. I did my master's degree or kind of like a master's degree in Mexico, studying international business. And then I went to law school. I started my first business in law school. But when I said to my dad, well, I don't want to go to college, maybe I want to go into business. And he said, son, after you become a lawyer, you can be an exotic dancer for all I care, but you're going to be a lawyer, exotic dancer. And so it wasn't really a discussion of whether or not I was going to become a lawyer first. So I did that out of respect for my father. And it's funny that he was right in a lot of ways because he basically said I wasn't ready as a human being to like my mind and my soul had not been cultivated and grown enough to go do the things that I thought that I could do. And I think now that he was right is that going through school, reading the best books in the world, training my mind, learning public speaking, overcoming my speech impediment, then becoming an attorney, understanding the law, because all property is law. All property is contracts. All business is contracts. And so learning that part of the law, I have much better lawyers than me, but that was a huge, huge, huge piece that really changed how I approach the law. So the reason we've done so many different types of asset classes is because we focus on zoning and entitlements, which is the law. So I look at a piece of land that was a farm. And some people say, oh, this is a farm. Well, I looked at it and say, well, this city's growing. What if we change the zoning to build houses, to build an elementary school, to build apartments, to build commercial space? That is about how you talk to city council, how you change the use case, working with the all different types of people to change the use, which is an exercise in law, advocating for your case, changing the uses, etc. So it's helped me profoundly. And also, when you run a big business, you're going to get sued, And so if you're going to get sued and things are going to go to court, understanding how the court systems work, understanding how lawsuits work, understanding conflict resolution, whether with vendors or whether with clients or banks, but all of these friction pieces are so much a part of business that I think becoming an attorney was such a necessary part of my internal system and my internal makeup as an entrepreneur that has done nothing but serve me. Although I don't practice law anymore as a lawyer, everything happens within the law in a civilized society, so it's helped profoundly.
He just always say that you only can put the dots back, yeah. And for me, the same thing, right? I went to this chemical engineering, and what happened there 5 years, I was solving problems all the time. They are mathematical problems, they are chemistry, they are physics. So 5 years solving problems. They are theoretical, but they are solving problems. So, and then what happened? I become an entrepreneur, and guess a lot of problems come, but because I have a training of solving problem for 5 years, they're theoretical. So I know that when it's a real problem, okay, they have more than one solution. There are different approaches. My training in university helped me, give me a problem solving brain, helped me a lot in my career as an entrepreneur. For you, the same thing. If you are in property, oh my God, and you have background in law, wow, you have a big, especially, those contracts at the beginning, lease option, they are, if you know how to do those contracts,
Little,
or
by
at
the way,
least you test
little
them.
property, little properties, little problems. Big properties, big problems.
So then why real estate, Ari? Why? So you will listen in
Well,
my
real
podcast, you want to
estate,
be visionary, you say, okay, you know what? In 10 years time, 20 years time, Harry's gonna have a podcast, and one out of five is gonna be property millionaire. So I know that property is the good vehicle. So you saw the future, and then you said, I'm gonna go for property. Or how you choose this? How you choose property? Go
it
ahead.
kind of chose me a little. The greatest books in the world, the great wealthiest families and people in history, like you said, they did real estate in some way, or their money grew from real estate. If they made it something, generational wealth was created by real estate. And I knew that. But as I said, my early investor in my entertainment business was a property guru, knew all the people. And that was the closest relationships I had with people, millionaires and billionaires. And so I said, well, I want to be in this realm. I want to be in this field, and that was the proximity. And so I saw that was the closest I was to wealth, that I just glued myself next to it and started to learn as much as I could. And those were the relationships I had. And then I came to build it. It was something, yes, I deeply wanted to do in a lot of ways, but it was the proximity and it was the closest. So I think maybe if my early investor was a technology venture capitalist, I might be a venture capitalist today and not a real estate mogul. But either way.
So if someone is in love with conversation, how people can find you, how this process work? Can you share with
Sure.
us?
Absolutely. You can read my book, which is called The Gift of Failure. You can find it on Amazon. You can listen to it on Spotify. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller, USA Today bestseller. And I put a lot of these books at the end. So if you buy the book, even if you don't like my book, the first line of the book is, I hope you fail. I hope you fail a lot. And at the end, I listed some of my favorite books. A lot of them we've talked about, that are in there that you can go back and read, that I think will help you on your journey. You can go find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Rastigar. You can go to rastigarcapital.com to learn about our investments. As I say, we manage money for hundreds and hundreds of high net worth individuals, for public pension plans, for insurance companies. We're doing tremendous things in Texas right now, really all over the country, but Texas is a big focus. But if you reach out, somebody will answer. I hope you read the book. I hope you come find us. And Harry, I hope you and I get together and hang out when we're in Miami. And I invite you and Lily to come visit me
Mhm.
here in Austin as well.
Well, thank you so much. Very, very kind. I think that this broadcast, guys, if you should listen it twice, it's a lot of wisdom. Yeah. And thank you so much, Ari, for share, and to be so humble. Uh, share your experiences with our audience. I really appreciate it. And mm, I think that the title of your book is amazing. And we have just the last bit short. Um, how you face failure, okay? Because saying that something doesn't work, you make it about me, I'm a failure, and then I see that your title of the book, you are embracing it, and it's a very good thought process for entrepreneurs, how we see, how we deal with failure. For example, if I fail, I will end up crying here. I don't want to depress you. Yeah. So I failed so much, right? And so huge sometimes. So tell us what inspired you to write this book and why that title specifically.
From failing so much and feeling like shit. And then truly, I joke, but then greatest achievers in the world and saying they all failed. It was the one thing they had in common is they all failed. And you look at baseball. I'll give you an analogy of baseball and I'll let you go. In baseball, okay? You're hitting a round ball with a round stick. That's coming. It's one of the most difficult things to do in athletics, okay? Hitting a round ball with a round stick. If you strike out 7 out of 10 times, that means you lose 70%. Think about that. 70% you lose. You're not just good, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Wow. Wow. Didn't
So,
know
so
that. I'm
next
a
time
big
you
fan.
fail,
Wow.
so next time you fail in one business, two business, and if you work out, just remember, 3 times out of 10, you're in the fucking Hall of Fame.
Wow. That's very inspiring. Thank you so much for that. That's a brilliant way to finish our podcast. Once again, Ari, thank you so much. And for you following the broadcast, see you now on next episode of how brave entrepreneur like Ari make the world achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.